What's up everyone, it's Wizard101 back in with another Wiz video, and today I want to talk about 10 changes or things I think that Wiz needs to add in the near future, whether it be later in 2024 or in 2025 as the fall update is about to release, and I think it's a good time to talk about things that will improve the game before the next update releases. Before we get started, 90% of you watching are not subscribed, so if you enjoy the content and want to see more in the future, make sure to leave a like or a sub. If you've watched videos by fellow creators Ice Cold and Frenzy, you'd know that Spellements are a huge problem for barrier of entry into PvP, among other things. You need to spend hours upon hours grinding for these Spellements to step into the arena, or you risk at being at a disadvantage against people with max tier versions of those spells. The gold key portals have helped a lot of people with obtaining lore Spellements, but you still need to get ARP2 Spellements through other means. I farmed cantrip chests back in March for a total of 12 hours, I'd say, and I still didn't get tier 5 Spellements. At this point in time, Spellements are just things that keep people away from PvP because of the added commitment, and if KI doesn't do something to make Spellements easier or quicker to obtain, I don't see how they expect PvP to see any substantial growth in players. I've never actually met someone who enjoyed Spellement farming, and it seems more like a chore than actually playing a game, and I really hope KI makes it easier to obtain these Spellements, or at least it makes other ways to farm them which are more fun than the current systems we have. The second thing I'd like to see is a fixed Portal of Peril. Now, we've all seen the memes. The Portal of Peril has been infamously dubbed the Portal of Problems by many people in the community, including other creators, and it really does hold true when almost every time it is launched there's been some type of major glitch or bug with it. I feel like it's very unfortunate how badly the Portal of Peril has been so far, because it had a ton of potential and came out during a time where a ton of casual PvE players felt very neglected by the developers due to raids being a major focus of the game now, as well as the entire Nightmare controversy. Honestly, with the amount of problems the Portal of Peril has had, I can't say that claim is invalid because it seems like KI would make changes much sooner if it were PvP that was bugged instead of something targeted towards more casual players. The third thing I'd like to see in the future is changes in raid drops. If you keep up with the new packs KI has dropped, you probably have heard of the Freaky Florimentor pack, which drops the Hun How Gear template from the Crying Sky raid. This pack, paired with the Fairy K pack, makes it so that raids are no longer required for PvP, besides maybe the wands from Crying Sky being a bit better. In my opinion, these packs are a good thing overall because they let people who don't want to raid stand a chance against people who do have the raid gear, while before they were at a significant disadvantage. Raid gear being a requirement for PvP should have never been a thing, but some raiders I have talked to have also expressed that there is no point in raiding anymore because of the gear being in these packs. I agree with them to an extent, which is why I think there should be more drops in regular raid runs to incentivize raids without making them a requirement for people who don't want to raid. Okay, I can do things like increase Spellment drops from raids, or maybe make more bosses drop good potions that will help you out. Personally, I would love for Utox or Hun How to drop me a double pet elixir to reduce my suffering while I train pets for raids and PvP. I feel like this would address the concerns of some people who think there's no point in raiding now that the packs are out and people can just buy the gear templates without taking away from the players who don't want to raid for the gear. Number 4 is more casual endgame content. This kind of ties into the point I have about Portal of Peril, but Wiz can definitely be doing more for the casual player base. I'm definitely into advanced content like raids and potentially PvP in the future, but the truth is most players are not into these things and most of them probably never will be. Not only because of the barrier of entry to these things, but also for the time investment alone. Some people just want to pick up Wiz and do their own thing with PvE that doesn't involve getting to Discord calls with 11 other people or playing against other players, and there should be more options for these people. It's always a common complaint that there's nothing to do after you reach max level in Wiz, which is untrue. The main problem is that there's a lack of accessible content. There should be more content like side worlds, for example, which it looks like they are doing in the fall updates, or things like Portal Peril, but this I'm checking for bugs before release. Just more things for people to do after they master their characters, except just creating a new character to play the game over again. Number 5 is changing the paywall. This is something that has been in conversation for years between devs and the player base, and hopes have been let down again and again, but paywall as is right now is genuinely absurd. The amount of times I've seen people hit the paywall in real time is insane, and the paywall really should be moved to the end of Wizard City. Expecting a player to pay to play without even finishing the first world is a lot to ask for, and they should at least extend the paywall to the end of the first world. By that point, players should have invested enough time to be invested into the game and its story, and might actually be excited to explore Krog after buying membership. Many people also argue free Arc 1, and I honestly agree with them, but I don't think that is realistic because of Gamigo and executives at the company. However, they should definitely do more events of temporarily making Arc 1 free on top of changing the paywall to the end of Wizard City. I think that this would help the game's longevity and be much more friendly to players who might be experiencing the game for the first time. Number 6 is that they need to change pet training. One thing that's a barrier to entry to many players to get good stats is pet making and the RNG associated with it. If you don't have a max character and a farm with a lot of couch potatoes or evil magma peas, making even one pet can be a very long process, and there's nothing to guarantee that the pet will actually succeed after you spend a ton of gold to hatch it in the first place. Twice as much if you don't have friends with good pets and need to use a kiosk. The first thing they should do is reduce the gold costs of hatching pets so that more players can hatch pets, even if they are lower level and don't have a ton of gold to spend like higher level players do have. The second change I would suggest for pets is to either do double pet XP for longer periods of time more often, or to make what is now double pet XP the standard amount. With advanced content, training pets is a necessity, and if KingsIsle wants more people to do advanced content, they should reduce the barrier of entry, which pets can be a major part of, due to the time, snack, and gardening investment, which is made much worse by RNG while pet making. Buffing pet XP would significantly reduce the amount of effort it takes to make a good pet and could potentially make more people willing to make specialized pets for PvP and raids, which it seems that's what KI wants with advanced content. Number 7 is pet and mount stitching. Now this is more of a cosmetic thing, but still relevant to many players who want to have the best stitches and want to look good in the game. This is something that has been asked for by the player base a lot in the past few years and something that I think would be cool to see. Whether you want judge's choice on Rate My Stitch or you just want to show off your great stitch while questing, more customization is always a good thing, and I know people would be very happy with a change like that. Number 8 would be a gear recycling system. Now this is something that my friend Frenzy brought up in a KI Live a few months ago, and I think it was a really good idea, so I'm going to include it in here. And that is to recycle your gear into reagents. This can be very useful as there are certain pieces of gear that drop from big dungeons that really just serve to clutter up your inventory. Dream Warper gear, for example, serves no purpose, and being able to exchange it into Dream Water or help in crafting the actual Reaver gear would be amazing. They could also implement something similar if you get lower tiers of Darkmoor gear to incentivize players to still at least get some runs of Darkmoor in, even if they're fed up with the RNG, so that they could turn the gear into reagents. In my opinion, this would make less people angry about how harsh the RNG really can be sometimes in dungeons like Darkmoor or in places like the Nightmare, where you're much more likely to get lower tier gear that is less optimal for the level you're playing at. Number 9 is a Khrysalis raid. Now I've mentioned wanting more content for casual PvE players, but I do think a KI should still continue with raids, even if I think they should be less of a priority than they have been in previous years. I hope that the next raid could be a Khrysalis raid. Many people dislike the ending of Part 2 Khrysalis, and felt as though Morgana's death was very underwhelming, and a lot of the same people believe that she didn't actually die at the end of Part 2. With the introduction of raids, we've traveled back to rules we can play in the past, and in the case of the most recent raid, the Polaris raid, we've even faced enemies that we've beaten before. I think that they could do something similar and make a Khrysalis raid where we're faced by Morgana and her old allies, or potentially new minions in the form of a raid, and she can finally receive an ending that makes people satisfied. This allows KI to correct something that many people feel they did wrong in the past without bringing her back into the main story, which would probably be very unpopular in the long run, and it doesn't seem to be the direction KI wants to go to with future story updates. Number 10 is in-game trading. Now this is probably the least likely thing for them to add into the game, but I think it would be very beneficial for players if KI decide to add this into Wiz. This would lessen the problem of people getting off school drops after farming, because you would be able to trade with someone else who maybe got the drop for your school, but they don't have the gear for their school, and you do. This could be a solution to many people getting duplicate items or unnecessary items from packs. For example, on my myth I have 2 Wastelander hats, and I don't need 2 Wastelander hats. I would love it if I could trade this hat to someone who has a Storm Skyfarer ring, for example, as I want that for raid setups. This feature would especially be useful for large dungeons like Darkmoor, for example, where people often get multiple of one item before getting the full set. On my balance, for example, I got 3 tier 1 Darkmoor robes, and I never got the tier 1 boots. If I could trade with someone who maybe has multiple sets of the tier 1 boots but might not have the tier 1 robe, that would be great. It encourages players to interact with each other, which strengthens the community around the game while lessening the grind required to get certain pieces of gear, which KI has been criticized extensively about within the past few years especially. With all that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Leave your own thoughts in the comments below with your own suggestions on what needs to be changed in the game. Remember to leave a like or a sub if you enjoyed the content. I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.